Lu Fan and Jianing stood side by side in the dense forest, their eyes fixed on the advancing threat. The silver-armored spiders, glinting ominously in the dim light, scuttled quickly towards them, their many legs clicking on the forest floor. Lu Fan and Jianing knew they couldn't afford to stand idly by. Jian Ying's swords floated around her, shimmering with an ethereal glow. She took a deep breath and began to move towards the spiders, her movements graceful and determined. Lu Fan, not wanting to be outdone, carefully placed Xiao Fei on his back and drew his dagger with his free hand. As he advanced, he glanced at Jian Ying and pointed out that her weapons were of an exclusive sword masterclass, unlike anything he had seen before. The silver-armored spider closest to them raised one of its sharp legs and struck with lightning speed. Lu Fan and Jian Ying leapt into the air, dodging the attack with practiced ease. While still airborne, Jianing met Lu Fan's gaze and began to explain the origin of her swords. She told him that sword master professionals had the ability to forge their own weapons. Each sword master started with a basic sword at level 1 and could level it up through various means. As she spoke, Jian Ying's eyes never left the spider. She spun her body in mid-air, her movements fluid and precise, preparing to strike. With a swift motion, she extended her hand towards the spider and hurled the water-cold sword. The sword transformed into an arrow, streaking through the air with deadly accuracy. As it flew, Jianing activated its frost ability. The sword-turned arrow began to emit a chilling aura, and upon contact with the spiders, it started to freeze their bodies, encasing them in a layer of ice. Jianing landed gracefully on the ground, her eyes still locked on the spiders. She extended her hands to the sides, a gesture of both readiness and command. Turning to Lu Fan, she emphasized that now was not the time for distractions. The battle was far from over, and they needed to stay focused if they were to overcome the silver-armored spiders. Lu Fan gazed at Jian Ying with a serious expression, deep in thought. He realized her profession resembled that of a dragon tamer. Like him, who could level up his pet dragons, she had the unique ability to enhance her weapons. As Jian Ying focused on her task, another spider silently crept up behind her. Its mouth opened wide, and with a sinister glint in its eyes, it prepared to strike. Jian Ying slightly turned her head back but remained calm, sensing the danger. Just as the spider lunged to attack, Lu Fan appeared out of nowhere. He swiftly blocked the attack with his dagger, staring intently at the spider. Without hesitation, he ordered Xiao Fei to use Emerald Light. Upon hearing his command, Xiao Fei, a small but powerful dragon, started flying towards Jian Ying. It extended its hands, and a radiant emerald glow emanated from its chest. 3 leaves materialized above Jian Ying's head, illuminating her with a soft, green light. Jian Ying looked at Lu Fan with surprise. She couldn't help but wonder what was happening, but quickly decided not to remain idle. Determined to assist, Jian Ying clenched her fist tightly and extended her other hand towards the spider. She focused intensely, summoning her Mountain Shaker ability. In a swift motion, her black sword darted towards the spider, piercing its chest and armor. Within moments, the spider lay lifeless on the ground. The combined efforts of Lu Fan and Jian Ying had saved them from a potentially deadly encounter. She turned, her eyes sparkling with joy, and directed her gaze at Lu Fan. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. The 30% buff he had provided during the fight had made a significant difference. The sword in her hand had leveled up to 15, its icy aura now even more pronounced. Beside Lu Fan, Xiao Fei, the little dragon, flapped his wings excitedly, his own level having just increased to 2. The bond between them all had grown stronger through the battle. Lu Fan observed Jian Ying with admiration. Her proficiency with her 3 swords was remarkable. The blood-breaking sword, known for its quick attacks and agile penetration, complemented her style perfectly. The water-cold sword, excellent for crowd control, allowed her to manage multiple enemies at once. Lastly, the Mountain Shaker sword served as a powerful tool for blocking and dealing high damage. Together, these weapons made her an incredibly versatile fighter. As they stood there, basking in their victory, a piercing scream shattered the moment. Both Lu Fan and Jian Ying snapped their heads in the direction of the sound. Panic flickered in their eyes as they saw Han Jie surrounded by a swarm of spiders. She had fallen to the ground, fear evident in her wide eyes. Qin Xiao and Tao Xiaoman were already on the scene. Qin Xiao, with a look of determination, gripped her magic staff tightly. She extended her free hand towards the closest spider, her eyes narrowing in concentration. "Tao Xiaoman, protect Han Jie," she commanded. Tao Xiaoman, responding without hesitation, unsheathed her sword. She positioned herself between Hanjia and the encroaching spiders, her stance strong and defensive. Despite the dire situation, there was a sense of unity and purpose among them. Seeing his friends in danger, Lu Fan felt a surge of urgency. "We have to help them," he shouted to Jianing. Without waiting for a response, he started running towards the fray, Xiao Fei close behind him. He knew they needed to act fast. As he ran, Lu Fan made a quick decision. "Jianing, find the black web hunter," he called over his shoulder. Jianing placed her hand on her chest and began looking at the ground, a faint smile spreading across her face. The situation was dire, yet something about it amused her. The spiders, sensing a moment of weakness, prepared to launch their attack. In response, Tao Xiaoman readied herself to defend, her eyes darting around, vigilant. Hanjia and Qin Xiu, standing beside her, activated their powers. Qin Xiu's magic staff began to glow, illuminating their surroundings with a soft, magical light. Hanjia, who had been sitting on the ground, looked sideways and couldn't help but feel scared. The fear was evident in his eyes, his heart pounding in his chest. Just then, Xiao Fei approached them. With a calm and steady demeanor, Xiao Fei extended its hands towards Hanjia and used its emerald light ability. 3 glowing leaves appeared above Hanjia's head, offering a semblance of protection. Meanwhile, Lu Fan sprang into action, ruthlessly cutting down the approaching spiders. He shouted a warning to Jianing, urging her to be careful not to fall into the webbind ability of the black web hunter. His voice was filled with concern as he explained that if she got caught, escape would be nearly impossible and death would be imminent. Jianing, taken aback by Lu Fan's concern, looked at him with a surprised expression. She couldn't help but wonder why he cared so much about her. Lost in her thoughts, Jianing almost didn't notice the 5 spider webs shooting out from the darkness, heading straight for her. Realizing the danger at the last moment, she quickly turned around, her sword slicing through the air to block one of the webs. Xiao Fei's emerald light ability created 3 small shields, blocking 3 more webs. However, the last web managed to graze her arm, causing a deep cut. The pain was sharp and immediate, and she clenched her teeth tightly, knowing this was not good at all. With the situation spiraling out of control, Jianing pressed her hand over her wound to stop the bleeding. Desperation fueled her actions as she started running towards the forest from where the spider webs had been shot. Her mind was racing, filled with thoughts of survival. Seeing her injured and running alone, Lu Fan's heart sank. He shouted after her, begging her not to venture into the forest alone. His voice echoed with worry and frustration, but Jianing was already too far gone to heed his warning. Lu Fan turned his head towards Jianing, his face full of worry. "Xiao Fei, please go heal her," he urgently requested. At that moment, Qin Xiu caught his attention as she was running and attacking the spiders. She called out to Lu Fan, urging him to go help Jianing. Nearby, Tao Xiaoman was sitting on the ground, using her sword to block the spiders' attacks. She explained to Lu Fan, "With Xiao Fei's emerald light ability, we can endure the fight against these spiders." Hearing this, Lu Fan felt a surge of determination. He started running in the direction Jianing had fled. Xiao Fei, with a serious look on his face, began flying and followed Lu Fan into the deeper part of the forest. As Lu Fan decided to go help Jianing, he quickly instructed Qin Xiu and Tao Xiaoman to take care of his aunt Hanjia. Venturing into the forest, Lu Fan found himself surrounded by dense spider webs. He pushed forward, his eyes scanning the area anxiously. Suddenly, he stopped, unable to believe what he was seeing. In front of him was a giant web of the black web hunter spider. In the middle of the web, the spider had trapped one of Jianying's swords. She was standing confidently on the ground, holding another sword in one hand while her third sword floated beside her. Lu Fan approached her, his heart pounding. Now that he had found her, he knew he had to help. Jianing was clearly very injured, with small cuts all over her body. She held her sword tightly with one hand while placing her other hand over a wound, her face contorted in pain. She closed one eye, focusing on the spider, and clenched her teeth, realizing the situation was dire. Without hesitation, Lu Fan darted forward, his eyes never leaving the spider. He raised his hand to the side, signaling Xiao Fei. "Xiao Fei, use emerald light," he commanded, his voice firm. Xiao Fei, a small but powerful spirit, nodded and immediately conjured the emerald light ability. 3 luminous green leaves appeared above Jianying's head, glowing softly. Jianying turned her body backward, her eyes flashing with determination. "Lu Fan, don't intervene," she said, her voice steady despite her pain. I can handle the spider on my own. At that moment, the black web spider reared back, preparing to use its web bind ability again. This deadly skill could wrap its target in a sticky web, killing them in just 60 seconds. The spider began to shoot a web towards Jian Ying, who, despite her brave words, felt a shiver of fear. She slightly turned her head back, seeing the web coming closer, and couldn't help but start sweating and panicking. Thinking she was in grave danger, Lu Fan appeared beside her, his presence calming her slightly. "Don't get distracted," he said softly but firmly, catching her attention. He then stood in front of her, shielding her with his body. His eyes locked onto the spider with an intense glare. "Follow me," he told Jianing, his voice a mix of urgency and assurance. Lu Fan extended his hand forward, ready to unleash his unique ability called Dragon Claw. This power allowed him to transform his arm into a dragon's claw, a fearsome weapon. The strength of this ability depended on the dragon he had contracted with. In a matter of seconds, his hand began to change, scales forming and claws extending until it was a powerful dragon's claw. Jianing, despite her injury, couldn't help but be amazed. She had never seen such a transformation before. "What is happening?" she murmured, her eyes wide with wonder. Lu Fan extended the dragon claw backwards, gathering his strength. With his other hand, he placed it in front of his face, his eyes never leaving the spider. His gaze was fixed and determined. He was ready to attack. With a mighty roar, Lu Fan launched a powerful claw attack towards the spider. His dragon claw sliced through the air with incredible speed and strength, cutting off several of the spider's legs in one swift motion. The spider shrieked in pain, its body thrashing wildly. In the process, Jian Ying's sword, which had been tangled in the web, was released and clattered to the ground. Jianing stood in disbelief, her eyes wide with shock as she surveyed the aftermath of Lu Fan's devastating strike on the black web hunter. The creature lay severely injured, testament to the immense power packed in Lu Fan's attack. She instinctively reached out for her mountain shaker sword, feeling its reassuring weight in her hand. Her fingers tingled with a faint, glowing aura, a sign of the energy building within her. Glancing at Lu Fan, Jianing noted the similarity in their ranks, yet the difference in their abilities was stark. Lu Fan's prowess matched her own mountain shaker ability, a testament to his formidable strength. With a swift motion, Lu Fan unsheathed his dagger, his eyes fixed on the wounded spider before turning to Jian Ying. "It's time," he said calmly, his voice carrying the weight of determination. Together, they would finish this. Channeling the whisper of the wind ability, Lu Fan felt the blessing of wind augmenting his agility by 15%. He dashed towards the spider, his movements fluid and precise. Jianing extended her hand towards him, invoking the power of the mountain shaker sword. The blade glowed brightly as she unleashed its ability, causing devastating physical damage that rippled through nearby enemies. As Lu Fan closed in, he focused his energy into the Dragon Fang strike. The surge of dragon energy amplified his attack, transforming his current weapon into a conduit for raw power. Their coordinated assault was relentless, slicing through the black web hunter with effortless precision. The creature, already weakened by Lu Fan's initial strike, could not withstand their combined might. In the heat of battle, a remarkable transformation occurred. Jian Ying's Bloodbreaker sword, originally of excellent quality, surged into epic status. Its strength surged from 3947 to 5131, while her agility spiked from 126 to 163 points. The sword's abilities resonated with newfound power, enhancing her combat effectiveness. As the spider collapsed on the ground, Jian Ying began to look at Lu Fan, her cheeks flushing a gentle pink. She found herself wondering why she felt so calm despite the vast difference in their skills. Her mind drifted, and her heart pounded gently in her chest, a curious sensation of peace and admiration mingling within her. At that moment, a system window appeared before Lu Fan, informing him that Xiao Fei had reached level 3. The little dragon, Xiao Fei, closed its eyes and started playing with Lu Fan's arm. Lu Fan turned his head towards the dragon, a smile spreading across his face. He thought to himself that this wasn't bad at all. He had managed to kill a few monsters, and now Xiao Fei had already reached level 3. If he could clear the secret realm, Lu Fan knew that Xiao Fei would reach level 5. While he was distracted with his little dragon, Jian Ying was lost in her own thoughts. She couldn't help but wonder about the strange sense of calm that Lu Fan brought to her. Breaking the silence, Jian Ying caught Lu Fan's attention and explained that she was surprised because she never thought there would come a day when she had to rely on the help of others. Lu Fan slightly turned his head back, started looking at her, and remained silent, deep in thought. Suddenly, Qin Xiu, Tao Xiaoman, and Han Jie appeared. Qin Xiu raised her magic staff into the sky and called out to Lu Fan and Jian Ying. She informed Lu Fan that they had already finished off all the silver-armored spiders. Han Jie closed her eyes and, with a smile, told Lu Fan that she had just leveled up. Listening to their cheerful words and seeing their smiles, Lu Fan turned to look at Jian Ying. He praised her for being strong. Upon hearing his voice, Jian Ying turned her body back and started looking at him with a confused gaze. Lu Fan began to look at her, and with a smile, he told her that even though she was stronger than them, they would not allow their teammates to fight alone. Jian Ying started looking at Lu Fan with a loving gaze and couldn't help but start blushing. Xiao Fei, the little dragon, sat proudly on Lu Fan's head as he turned his body towards Qin Xiu and Han Jie. The dragon's tiny but imposing presence brought a sense of warmth and protection to the group. Han Jie approached Lu Fan with a look of concern etched on her face. "Why didn't you use Xiao Fei's emerald light ability to protect yourself?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. Lu Fan, calm and composed, placed his hand on his waist, closed his eyes, and with a gentle smile, replied, "I don't need to use the ability on myself." His confidence radiated through his words, reassuring his friends. Tao Xiaoman, with her hands on her waist, interjected impatiently, "Then quickly use your dragon to heal everyone." Her voice carried a sense of urgency, reflecting the group's dire need for healing. Responding to her command, Lu Fan turned to Xiao Fei and commanded, "Use the Fountain of Life ability." The little dragon nodded, lifting its head and closing its eyes. The gem embedded in its chest began to glow brightly, casting a soft green light around the team. A shimmering green dome appeared, enveloping them all in its healing embrace. As the healing light washed over them, Qin Xiu's face lit up with a renewed vigor. She looked at the dragon and couldn't help but smile, feeling her strength returning. It was as if the fatigue and injuries were melting away, leaving her ready to fight once more. Tao Xiaoman, feeling the healing energy, closed her eyes and placed her hand on her belly. She burst into laughter and teased, "Lu Fan, your head has turned green because of Xiao Fei's emerald light." Her laughter was infectious, bringing a light-hearted moment amidst the tension. Lu Fan, amused and slightly exasperated, looked at Tao Xiaoman and playfully declared, "Xiao Fei, don't heal Tao Xiaoman again in the future." His tone was light, but the camaraderie was evident. Jian Ying, who had been watching the interaction silently, couldn't help but smile. The sight of her teammates joking and laughing filled her with a sense of belonging. She felt a warmth in her heart, and her cheeks blushed with joy. She thought to herself, having teammates isn't so unpleasant after all. Several minutes later, it started to get dark. The team following Lu Fan reached a cliff, the atmosphere tense and filled with the sounds of nature quieting down for the night. The little dragon, Xiao Fei, perched comfortably on Lu Fan's head, putting his tiny hands on his waist as he scanned the area below with a determined look. Tao Xiaoman, holding a tablet in one hand, used her other hand to scratch her head. She frowned, finding the situation very strange. According to the map, they had reached the end of their journey, but she wasn't sure if this was truly the destination they sought. The map's path terminated abruptly at this cliff, leaving her uncertain. As Lu Fan stood near the edge of the cliff, staring into the abyss below, Tao Xiaoman walked up to him. "Is there still a large area ahead?" she asked, her voice tinged with curiosity and concern. Lu Fan remained silent, his gaze fixed on the darkness beneath them, offering no answer to her query. Qin Xiu then stepped closer to Lu Fan. As she peered over the cliff's edge, her expression shifted drastically. Her eyes widened in horror, and a cold sweat broke out on her forehead. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. Down at the bottom of the cliff, hundreds of silver-armored and black-webbed spiders scurried around in the ravine. The sight was enough to send chills down anyone's spine. But what truly horrified her was the monstrous spider standing behind these smaller creatures. This gigantic spider, its eyes glowing with malevolent bloodlust, radiated an intense killing intent that could be felt even from their vantage point high above.